Hello, I want to welcome you to another episode of Recovery Today, sponsored by the Recovery Resource Center here in Salisbury, Maryland. I'm your guest host, and my name is Perry Gaidurgis. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which for me means over 40 years of abstinence from active addiction. I'm also the family member of multiple family members through multiple generations of recovery. Our show is a show that looks at the different paths of recovery and the different ways that recovery is experienced in our community. And our guest today is someone I've known for a while, Michelle Coker. I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Michelle is the owner of Yoga Flow here in Salisbury, Maryland. And I want to welcome you here again to talk about what is yoga?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, to keep it pretty simple, for most people it's exercise.
Okay.
But it's a way of living. It's a way of doing things with discipline and integrity but again, it starts off as exercise, and it's low impact. No machines are needed. Okay. Just a hard, flat surface, comfortable clothing. And the main thing that I notice most people are very shocked by when they come to class is breathing. So the first thing I teach if someone is new is diaphragmatic breathing, deep belly breathing, using your diaphragm. Most people don't know that they have a diaphragm. And relaxation. Those two things. Posture. And these are things that all of us have and do. We all breathe. I've had many people say, well, why do we have to spend so much time breathing? And I'm like, okay, stop. Okay. So, I mean, it's essential. And many people breathe way up in their chest, which is how you would breathe if you were really excited or really upset, or hold their breath.
Which then is more shallow breathing, as they call it?
Yes, very shallow. So if you're not breathing efficiently, all kinds of things can go wrong. That plays into anxiety as well. So we work on breathing and posture, and through the deep breathing, people relax. So I always ask people on my registration form, name, address, cell phone number. That's pretty much it. I don't ask too much medical information. The one important question I ask is, how do you relax? And most people say TV, reading, naps, or they simply say, I don't. And I say, okay, that's the most important thing. That's what I want to know, because that tells me a lot. So they learn how to relax, and the main way is through breathing. It's a tool that we all have. We just don't know how to use it.
And so that's one of its main purposes of yoga then. I know here over the last couple decades they've said it's been written about the evolution of yoga from India and other eastern regions of the planet, and how now it's been westernized.
Yeah, it has been westernized. I've never been to India, but when you say yoga to most people, when I say yoga, they say, oh, you're a yoga teacher, you must be really flexible. And so most people equate yoga with flexibility and strength and physical, just all physical.
Okay.
And it's not physical. I mean, there's parts of it that are very physical, but it doesn't have to be hard. Yeah, you want to exercise your joints and get good blood flow and feel energized and relaxed at the same time, but there's also many other aspects to it. If you can breathe well and relax, you can get some clarity maybe of your thoughts, or you can get away from your day-to-day stream of thinking, because most people think the same thing every day. You know, you have habits, you do the same things every day, so you think the same way. What's traffic going to be like? What am I going to eat?
Okay.
You know, what am I going to have to deal with at work? But it kind of brings people a little closer to themselves. They pay attention to just themselves for an hour. And I ask people all the time, how was your day? What did you do today? Or whatever. And most people will say something about work or the weather. Or they're upset about something. And then after class, I always say, I don't mean to rehash this, but have you been thinking about whatever it was you came in here with? And they say, no. So just that one break from yoga's goal, the goal of yoga, which sounds real way out there, but it's not, is to just learn to know about yourself much better.
Okay. Well, why did you get involved in yoga? When did that first happen for you?
I had to think about this. Everybody asks me that. People always ask me, you know, why? How did you know? How did you choose yoga? And apparently, I must convey that I really, really like what I'm doing, because when I first opened Yoga Flow in 2013, a lady asked me, she said, how did you know yoga was your passion? Never had anybody ask me that. And I answered her just like that. I didn't even think about it. I said, you know what? Because it wouldn't leave me alone. And that's exactly what happened. Everything kept drawing me towards yoga. I first experienced the physical yoga postures and, what is this? When I was in high school.
And where was that at?
St. Agnes Academy in College Point, Flushing, New York.
Okay.
And it was an all-girls high school.
That's Queens?
Queens.
Okay.
It was an all-girls high school, Catholic high school, and we had a phys ed teacher. I don't even know if they have phys ed anymore, which is a crime, and she was excellent. And to us, she was this old, miserable woman. She was probably like 40, and we thought she was super old. And she was from Germany, so she had a really thick accent, and we could hardly understand her. But we did fun stuff, and these were things I wasn't exposed to as a city kid. So we learned how to play, volleyball, and we learned gymnastics. We learned how to square dance, which I love. And then we learned yoga, and there was something about it that I was like, ooh, I really like this. But that was it. And then I had no place else to go for information. I mean, I'm talking 1980.
Okay.
So there was no internet at all. There was no YouTube and all that. So basically all I had access to was maybe a VHS tape. And the only other place that I could gather information was the library.
Okay.
So, and I had books that were reference books only. I don't even know if they still do that. But you couldn't take the book out. So I would just study it while I was there. And the books that were in the library were very few. And they were all, half of it's in Sanskrit and it's very technical. But I just kept reading it and starting to understand things.
These sort of seeds or the foundation started out more physical in the ways that you described as it was starting to impact your life, I guess. So what did that look like over time, over the decades, so to speak?
Well, through this research, I guess you can call it, of mine, studying these reference books, as I said, it wasn't all that physical in the book. I had the physical aspects of it from the tape.
Yes.
And then the book had certain very classical positionings. Of course, I wanted to do the headstands right away and probably almost killed myself, I don't remember. But they had a lot of other information in there about meditation and quiet time. And
or mindfulness.
That's a big thing nowadays.
Yeah.
Yes, mindfulness, just sitting, just being. and just taking time. And I think through that, I kept that little part of yoga with me. And I always had time to myself to reflect or just think or just be. And I carry that with me throughout college, careers, taking the trains into Manhattan. I would listen to tapes of meditation on my Walkman, just appreciate being outside, you know, in Manhattan. I was in the brokerage business, so it was very fast, very very stressful. And I would always take a little bit of time just to sit and be quiet and relax. And I think that's what helped me quite a bit. I don't know where I would have been without this physical movement every day of my personal practice and this meditation.
Okay. It sounds like I can hear your passion, and I hear your knowledge is just deep. And so with that, with this show that we explore about addiction recovery and the multiple paths that people have, I understand that in your studio you do have one dedicated private class for those who are self-identified in recovery.
Yes.
And so why do you offer a class like that, or the history of it, or anything like that?
Well, that's interesting. I didn't offer it. I don't advertise because I didn't have money to advertise. It's expensive. But this was something that everyone kept asking me for. They said, "You do yoga? Well, I'd like some yoga." And a lot of people in recovery, say, for instance, they went to a rehabilitation center. And I've never been to a rehabilitation center, but apparently they teach yoga there all the time.
Yes, no, I think in the last 10 or 15 years that's become a very common practice.
Yes, so whether or not they've come from a place like that or they just heard through, you know, everyone speaking, you know, oh, she does yoga. I had many people ask me, can I come to class? I'm like, sure. But they didn't want to come to the mainstream class with everybody else. They were like, well, do you have a special class for people in recovery? And I was like, no, but maybe I ought to. And that's how it came about. So there's, it had to be on a day that I didn't have my regular classes. And so it's on a Sunday after a really big meeting in town. And everyone comes. And I still teach the same things. You know, the breathing, the posture, the postures, but also my language is a lot different in these classes. I like these classes actually better because I can say things that people know exactly what I'm talking about, and I can use different words, and I can say very openly prayer.
So obviously that you have, well, to me obviously, that you have some connection to recovery. So what's that about at a personal level?
Oh yeah. I'm in recovery 14 years through, I guess I don't know, I think I can't imagine anybody seriously aspiring to have an addiction. I don't think anybody wants that. So I didn't set out and intend to drink alcoholically. But it came about through life. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't incarcerated. I didn't get a DUI or DWI, whatever they call it nowadays. But I just depended on alcohol to help me get through whatever, whether it was a difficult time or to enhance a happy time. And there is a point, and everybody has that point, even though we don't identify it or we overlook it. But there's a point where you cross the line and you become dependent, and then things just spiral out of control. Sometimes slow, sometimes fast, but they do get out of control. And it affects every single person in their life, especially family. And you can't control yourself, you can't control your habits, and you need help. So that's how I started to go to the RRC. And I come from a long line of addiction, and my mom was also in AA many years ago, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. I know I didn't pay attention to it, though there was the Serenity prayer on the refrigerator, there were books in the house, there were ladies coming in and out, she would go to meetings. And as a little kid, I didn't quite understand it, but I did know for a fact that when she goes with her friend to that meeting and comes home, she's always in such a good mood.
Yes, yes. I too, my mother was in long-term recovery and died sober at over 30 years. And had the same experience with her and my dad.
So when I got to that point where I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to have to do something. Then I found my way to the RRC, and it was a journey that I'm still in, and I love it. I just love it. There's nothing more helpful than the community aspect of recovery, and that's how yoga ties so much into it, because it is a community thing, meaning a group of people coming together with the same purpose.
Yes.
And when you're in the midst of an addiction, you're not being in a community. You're
usually isolated.
You're completely isolated by choice. And the furthest thing from your mind is being around other people and noticing how that may help you in any way. No, because this is bad. You're a mess. You're not in control. You're weak. You've got problems, and unlike any other time you're weak and have problems, like you have the flu or your house falls apart, you can always call and have somebody come and help you or go to the doctor. But with an addiction, it really is stigmatized. And
so you're describing the idea of concept of connection, and in that connection is the idea of love and service, in a sense of giving and helping other people, and how you receive the help back. And I would imagine even in the yoga practice that you're connecting to yourself, as it were, and then in a collective group of people doing the same thing. And so that does sound like a lifetime type of a process for folks. That recovery is a process and not so much an event.
Exactly.
Or a lifestyle.
Exactly. Lifestyle. That's how I started off with our conversation. I said it's a way of life. Yeah, and recovery is constantly, you constantly learn about yourself, just like in yoga. It's self-realization. You learn about yourself in yoga, you learn about yourself in recovery, and that connection with people is the best.
So transformation does seem to be a huge part of the recovery process, and it sounds to me, whether it's subtle, it's not always so dramatic, but over time, and I think that's that power of practice, to create transformation and have a commitment to ongoing wanting to be a better person, so to speak, and also to your family and to your community.
Yes.
And take your hour of stress reduction from your class into your workplace and into your home and into your neighborhood.
That's where everybody seems to be trendy now. The mindfulness, self-care is another big trendy term that people have been throwing around. And we all have said it, or someone's told us, you can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself.
Those who are watching this show right now or through a YouTube video with the PAC 14 channel know that yoga is a powerful method to enhance your recovery, to support your recovery, and this too is something that is available through a lot of communities. And as you mentioned too,
A lot of other yoga studios in town.
Yes.
There's more and more opening up.
Yes, right here in Salisbury.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, know that you've watched, I believe, an insightful and inspirational show to be more healthy and more in a practice of wellness with your recovery and the importance of that. And so, again, thanks again.
Thank you, Perry.
Michelle?
Maybe we'll have a
Coker?
part 2.
Yes, that could happen. And yes, and that's part of a yoga flow, right? As it
Yeah,
were.
flow.
Yes,
Just keep
flow.
flowing.
Let's keep flowing.
Forward.
Growing and
Forward.
knowing and going. Yes. So again, thank you for watching another episode sponsored by the Recovery Resource Center of Recovery Today.